First day of school today.
Oh my word. If you open your Facebook today or your Instagram, it's all just pictures of kids first days of school.
I have the pictures on my phone, but I haven't posted them.
You haven't?
No, I'm the worst, man. I forget that social media is a thing.
Yeah.
Some people really care about it.
Yeah.
I went to Disney, didn't post nothing.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see if you...
And so like today, first day of school, taking pictures of my kids. They're in my phone. It's now 10 o'clock. I still haven't made a post.
Well, you should do it.
Yes. So Rachel's a teacher, and both of our kids are in elementary school, and so people run around. I'm packing lunches. The dog's barking.
Yes.
Yeah, we're trying to. I'm like, this is really Lunchables.
Yeah.
We're Lunchable parents now.
No, it's like the season. It's like the day of the season's changing. Even though it's still hot, it's still summer. But like every year, it's like a moment. In the picture, one day you're gonna look back and be like, I'm so glad I had those.
No,
pictures,
I'm so
even
glad
if
I had
didn't
it.
Post them.
Lillian got up early. She's going into third grade, and she curled her hair. So she curled her hair,
cute.
and it looks really great from the front.
Yeah. And just tell her it looks really great.
Yeah. She's still trying to figure out how to curl it back. And then she's got on this cute little outfit.
So cute.
With some white Crocs, and they're crisp and clean, like brand new. She hasn't been wearing them through the summer for the first day of school.
That's adorable.
Titus, on the other hand, that dude don't care what he looks like.
Yeah,
he don't want no gel in his hair. He wants to wear a Sonic the T-shirt, Sonic the Hedgehog T-shirt, and some dinosaur shorts that don't match.
He don't care.
He don't care at all.
No, I wonder if the white Crocs are like the white kids of my generation. It was like you had to have the perfect crisp shoe. So for me, my house, I took a picture of my daughter by herself for the first time ever because she's always had a picture with her brother.
Oh, E-Money.
She went to school first, and then she joined the pictures, but he's not in high school anymore. It's a very sad day. It's kind of emotional day.
It's really sad he dropped out. I'm just kidding. He graduated last year.
Yes, but actually, proud mom moment. He actually went to the high school before she did because he went with our youth team to take donuts and share some Jesus love and smiles. I know.
Mom and Dad win. Good
So
job,
it's like-
Aaron. Good job, Whit.
Yeah, it was like awesome that he did that, but then also super sad because he's a grown
Let me
person.
tell you something.
What?
McKinley's going to be fine.
She is.
Your daughter, she's fine.
She's fine.
You can put her anywhere and she'll be
No,
right.
and same though, like her outfit is what I wore in high school. The 90s is back, bro.
Yeah.
And it's super weird to me because I'm like, why are you wearing those giant jeans? I wore those giant jeans and I now look back and go, why did I wear those?
Uncle Trust and
Yeah.
Win.
Yeah.
Uncle Trust and
you
Win.
did- This is a win.
You took your kids shopping to the bougiest
You're right.
places,
You're
got
right.
them all the things. McKinley and I were at an event.
Yeah.
And we saw another worship team from a church there. They were selling this T-shirt.
That's true.
And I saw McKinley's eyes light up, and so I bought her the T-shirt.
did.
And the T-shirt she's wearing to her first day of high school,
You win.
I bought it.
Hey,
I'm
in
winning.
fashion, it's like I've taught you some things, but
Yeah.
you're like pouring back to her and some. No, it's her favorite T-shirt. So
No,
it's a
super
great
fun.
day, fun day. But you know,
Titus, so Lillian walks into class very proper.
oh, always.
And like walks
girl
in
following the rules always.
to her seat and
Yeah.
sets her bag down and like greets her friends.
Yes, hello.
Titus walks into the class and goes, "Oh yeah!" runs to his desk and starts pounding on the desk.
Of course he
the
did.
second he sits down.
Of course he did.
And I just look at the teacher and I'm just like, good luck.
Yes. Oh man. No, we're praying for all the kids today and like teachers too. Like Rachel's a teacher. It's
Yeah.
it's been a hard season, but I'm excited because I think the new year, it's like fresh start. Oh, it's going to be good for all of them.
Yeah.
So even in though this mom moment today, like it was a hard and happy moment. all
Busy
at the
and
same
emotional
time.
and- yeah.
And so like sometimes it's hard to like go, "Well, now I got to go do the thing I'm doing. But like that's as leaders something we all have to do. We
Yeah.
face like days that are kind of emotional and
Yeah.
we have to keep going.
We're still here.
I'm still showing up.
Showed up to work
I
on-
kind of wanted to go sit at a coffee shop by myself and be like, you did it, Mom. You made it through. But
Yeah.
no.
Something that you and I talk about together. And I
Yeah.
know we've never really talked about it here. We're
Uh-uh.
let's talk about it now.
Let's do it today.
Is that sometimes we're leading and bleeding
Yes.
at the same time.
No, I think a lot of times we're leading and bleeding at the same time because
Yeah.
if you're pushing into more, you're doing hard things.
Yeah. Which is what we're talking about here
Yeah.
every time on the podcast.
That's
is
right.
that if you're a person who feels like God has something big for you,
Yeah.
or you know that there's more for your life, that's a tug.
Right.
It's a tug to be where you are and where you're going. And so the tug of more is about getting to that more thing.
Yeah,
and it's a battle.
It is.
If you're in tug of war, your hands are getting scraped up, man. You're getting hurt. It's hard to hold on and fight towards more.
Because there is always a tension and a fight and a struggle. And so inevitably, you're going to bleed somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether it's in your own personal life or whether it's the people around you or the people you're leading. And we have to learn how to keep leading while bleeding. Yes, we've already talked about before. There's times for rest. There's times for taking a day off. There are moments that it's important to stop.
Yeah.
But for 97% of the time, we got to keep going.
You got to push that thing.
Yeah.
So as kids, when we say what we want to do when we grow up, we don't realize all that comes with that.
No.
Like, I want to be an astronaut.
Right.
Do you know what a horrible experience astronauts have to go through to become an astronaut?
Right.
They got to get put in that centrifuge and spun around a million miles an hour. They got to all kind of jack. They got to eat that lame food. They got to pee in a thing that shoots your pee into outer space.
We went to Disney World and we rode the astronaut training ride, and it was literally called Less Intense. And afterward, Lily and your daughter was like, I want to ride more intense.
Yeah.
So we did, and we get in it, and I forgot the G-force thing it makes you feel, and I was like, oh my word, you feel like you're gonna pass out.
But what we do is we say we want more.
Right.
We say, I want to be an astronaut. We say, I want to be a leader or a pastor or a business owner. I want to have 9 kids.
Right.
Whatever our more is, but we don't always realize the pain that's associated with the growth.
Right. And so no matter what it is, whatever area of life, there's pain in it. As moms and dads taking our kids to school and letting our heart go on the outside of our body and run around a school building, that's painful and hard, and they're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
As leaders of organizations, we have employees who means they're going to go through hard stuff.
Yes.
And when we love our employees, we're going to feel for that. But then those employees are going to inevitably hurt us or hurt the organization.
Yeah.
And I think, we either decide to learn how to lead and bleed at the same time, or we just stop stepping into more. We don't maybe even quit all the way, but we stop showing up.
No, I mean, the alternative, if you're on a walk and you cut yourself.
Right.
You cut your foot, step on a rock. You can either walk back to where you came from, or you can just sit down there and not go anywhere and die, I guess.
The greatest analogy is that, do you remember Carrie Strug in the 1996 Olympics?
Oh, the hero.
She was the hero of our generation, that she broke her foot to win the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I think that not in every scenario, but sometimes we have to be willing to keep going with a broken foot.
Yeah.
Because if not, we won't get there.
Make the jump.
Right.
Sometimes your ankle hurts. Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes there's a little thing that happened. But we can't just allow pain to stop us from the great experience.
No, I think that if you and I would have let it stop us even once, we would have stopped 5 years ago when we first began.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You gave a great kind of list of reasons that in any form of leadership you can find yourself bleeding.
All kinds.
We're not talking physically.
Oh, no.
Very, very rarely.
Maybe you're actually bleeding, you should go to the hospital.
I had to preach once. I'd stepped in a nail and my foot was bleeding. And I remember preaching on a Sunday and I could feel the blood in my shoe while I was still preaching. Right. But that's only one time in my whole life.
Right.
But my emotions have been bleeding 1,000 times.
Right.
That I've been in meetings, behind a pulpit, in conversations, writing emails, where my emotions and my feelings are dying.
Right.
I am internally shook and crying and sad, but I have to make a decision. Am I just going to lay down and die and bleed, or am I going to keep leading?
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
No,
so
absolutely.
You gave a great couple hitters. What are some things that happen in life that can make leaders feel discouraged?
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but I think for us, there have been personal moments over the last 5 years for sure that have caused, over the last decade of my life, that have caused me to pause for a moment, but have to make a decision. We talk a lot about our mental and our emotional health here. We talk about it in our daily life a lot too. And it matters, because what can happen is it can become a tidal wave, and man, everything we do is affected. And so, I mean, for me, there's been seasons of loss. When my parents went through the divorce they went through, what's true is I was still leading in life, in my job, in my organizations, and the things I was doing. But at home, I was having a hard time.
Yeah.
In my marriage, we've had seasons where we were having a hard time. Man, Aaron's brother passed tragically like 4 years ago, and he went straight away to be with the family, and I stayed back with the kids because they had some stuff going on. And so as a mom, I had to make a decision to keep leading, even though I was brokenhearted.
You want to cry for your husband, but you got to smile for your children.
Right. And then
You're leading and
as
bleeding.
a pastor, we had that weekend, we had some stuff happening, and like I determined, you and I had a conversation. We determined I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up on Sunday. I'm going to sit in the front row. I'm going to continue to lead the way I'm called to lead here. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it's important that...
And we got in a little argument about it.
Yeah, we did.
Because I was telling you, no, don't come to church.
Right.
You had better go. And you said, no, this is... Aaron's okay.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? My kids, they're
this
little,
is what's
they're
happening.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we had kind of predetermined, hey, this is it. And it didn't mean there weren't hard emotional moments.
For sure.
There were conversations and there were moments I even had to kind of like pull myself together. But in those times, we have to make a decision, and it's a predetermined decision.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to step into it, and then I had to know somebody's going to say something that's going to make me sad, or somebody's going to ask a question that might trigger an emotion. But I have to be prepared to keep leading even while I'm walking through a heavy thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, someone's going to come up to you and say, yeah, I had a family member die.
Right.
And then they're going to tell you this long story when you're already sad. I'm like, let me just give you a little advice.
Yeah, don't do that.
If someone has a family member die tragically, don't tell them your tragic story.
Right.
That doesn't help nobody.
No, or if someone's like struggling with an ailment or a sickness, and you know somebody who like died from the same sickness, don't tell them that while that person is still recovering in the hospital.
Oh yeah, my aunt died from that too.
Get ready. Oh, come on. But people, I think they just don't, they want to help and they don't know, and so they say words. But you have to prepare yourself personally.
Yeah. I think personally, and then that kind of leads into in your relationships or in your marriage.
Yeah.
Like for Rachel and I've had to lead while I've been bleeding at home.
Yeah.
That Rachel and I have walked through a whole lot of stuff, that she had a whole lot of stuff in her past. I think she's talked about some on the podcast. Yeah. And that creeps into your life. Her dad passed away, and he was an abuser.
Yeah.
And so she was sad that he died, and it brought up all these feelings.
Right.
And so while our home in moments was chaos, and we're fighting, and not happy, not connecting, I still should fulfill my calling.
Right.
I still have a tug of more.
Right.
I have to be able to not shut it down, not erase it, but deal with it in the right moments.
Correct. That's what it is. You have to determine the right places and spaces.
That's what leading and bleeding is.
100%.
Dealing with it in the right places and the right spaces.
Absolutely.
We've got to get to that.
Yes.
So, personal stuff, family stuff, stuff in the organization.
Absolutely.
You said employees and staff and
circumstances beyond your control, finances. I mean, we lead a organization that is dependent upon people giving donations every week.
Yeah.
And if we've had, let's even talk about when Corona hit. We weren't sure, are people going to keep giving even though we're not having open door church?
And some did.
Yeah.
And some didn't. And we were bleeding.
Yeah.
We're
absolutely.
like, oh no.
Right.
This is not the direction that we wanted it to go.
Right.
Do we just sit down and die?
Right.
Or do we keep on making leadership decisions? Are we going to be led by our head or led by our heart?
Yeah. And that's a huge one too.
Yeah.
But we have to determine, okay, yes, when you identify where the thing is coming from, I think it can help you in your life. Because sometimes it's that things are happening in your organization and you have to still lead properly at home.
Yeah.
You still have to lead your family properly.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you got to see where it's happening. But and then sometimes people are just the worst.
Sometimes, people are jerks. Sometimes there's haters.
Yeah.
Sometimes people you thought that were with you, you find out are now against you.
Yeah.
And that hurts immensely.
You've had times where you've either maybe preached on something. We did a series once that people got really in the community on Facebook, I can't believe they're talking about that. Well, it's in the Bible, so we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, well, the end is near.
Yeah, right. And so
Revelations
is a real thing,
yeah.
And we're not trying to scare anyone. We're trying to inform them. But it can be easy to go down the rabbit trail of oh my gosh, they don't like me. And so what do I do? No, you have to keep leading in the midst of it.
Personal, family, business, organizational, haters,
Yeah.
friends, all of these things can cause stab wounds, bleeding in us internally. But what you just said, do you have another one?
Yes, one more.
Go.
It is something that we've talked about a ton. You and I both have worked. I mean, we said personally, but like personally. So we've made decisions in life to be emotionally healthy and mentally healthy, strong people.
So not an external thing.
So really
but
an internal,
internal.
so there have been times that my counselor and I were walking through some really heavy, onion layers of my life. And I had to determine that was a really hard counseling session. Mm-hmm. But I'm still going to be leading in this area that I have. I can't allow my personal emotions to overtake the organization. No. So, suck it up. This is what I've decided. Again, what we're about to go to of there's a right time and place for it.
Yeah.
But recognizing that I can't let that bleed into my team. I have to keep leading while I'm bleeding on the inside.
Yeah. No, it's so good that all of these pieces, there's a time and a place.
Yeah.
Hey, as leaders, we're humans.
Right.
We are not robots.
We are not robots.
We bleed.
Yeah.
We hurt. Things
Absolutely.
happen. It's not easy. And we're not saying, buckle up, buttercup. Right. We're not saying just grin and bear it. We're not saying that. It needs to be dealt with.
Right.
The hurt in our lives. But we have to be able to lead and bleed. So what you just said is gold, that we have to deal with the things in the right times and the right places.
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. So, I mean, even what you said in our marriages, in our homes, these personal things, like with my kids, I'm not going to be on the phone yelling with my kids during a meeting.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of a given, right? But it should be. Should be a given. Now, my kids know if they call, I'm going to answer because but they also know that pretty quick the next question is going to be, you okay? Because if they're hurt, I want them to call me if something's wrong. But, man, we have to determine, hey, actually, this is not the right time to talk about this. I've got this, and this. I got to lead. I got to keep doing my job. I got to keep here. So tonight we can have a conversation. Yeah. In our marriage, like you were talking about, in seasons that are hard, we have to determine we're going to go to counseling on this day at this time. Yeah. And this is a space for that.
So there are some moments of life that are go time.
Yeah. 100.
If you're in a meeting, if you're at work, if it's 9 to 5, if you're doing something, if it's a Sunday, it's go time.
Oh.
This is where we butter the bread. This is where the thing gets done.
Right.
And so if Rachel and I are having conflict, or if we're having an organizational issue, Sunday morning isn't going to be the most efficient time for us to deal with all those things.
No, right.
We're not saying don't deal with it. We're not saying just keep smiling and pretend. No. We should have dealt with it already on Thursday.
Right.
Or we now know we have to push it off to Monday.
Yeah. No. There's a phrase that you say in sports. They say, put your game face on.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to put our game face on and know that, hey, I'm going to get to this, but right now I have to. It's not pretending. It's not being fake.
Yeah.
It's just leading in the right moment.
Man, this is such an important conversation.
So there's been times that Aaron and I have gotten texts, and of course it happens this way, in the middle of Sunday service from our family, that are things that are just giant popping off in our families, in our extended family circumstance. But literally in those moments, we have to determine we're putting our phone down and we got our game face on.
Yeah.
That we'll get to this when service is over. We'll get to this in the moment that we can.
I'm going to lead it then.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in and put all my energy and focus in it there. And so I'm going to choose to take my thought captive.
Right.
I'm going to choose to let my mind run it, not my emotions run it, because the heart's deceitful above all things.
Right.
And I'm going to do what God's called me to do right now. And then I'm going to deal with it tomorrow.
Go.
And it's hard.
It is hard.
I remember we were getting ready to do a big series that we'd been planning for here at Living Church for a while. And I had a lot happening internally.
Yeah.
I had some real hurt from external factors. Rach and I were carrying a lot. It felt like everything was exploding. And I remember we were launching this series. It's the first week. We have this really intense video, and it comes on, the lights come up, I'm about to preach, and I have my first ever feeling of panic.
Yeah.
And I start crying on the stage.
Yeah.
And I have a moment on the stage where I can either dismiss the service,
run off the stage,
run off and cry and melt, or I can just stand there for 30 seconds and cry.
Yeah.
And then say, hey guys, let me pray.
Yeah.
And so I did that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out there.
Yeah, we can find it.
I went and prayed. I prayed and I just said, God, there's a lot in my head. There's a lot in my heart. You're doing a lot of great things in this church. And Father, I ask that you help me deliver the message that you've put on my heart.
Right.
Do not let my heart overwhelm
Right.
what you've told me to do. In Jesus' name, amen. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, a miracle happened.
Yeah.
That I was able to compose myself and able to speak the truth that God had.
Right.
But that is leading and bleeding.
But do you know why you're able to do that?
Because
One, Jesus. But
Yeah.
the other one,
because I had been dealing with it previously and I knew I would deal with it
yeah.
next.
And you'd been practicing leading and bleeding for a long time.
Yes.
And so, like, I think you and I were...
My pain tolerance had grown.
Yeah. And so we have to start even in small things to deciding to do. It can seem like not a big deal to like leave in the middle of the day to go do a silly thing, then handle it, or something that we think, oh, that didn't emotionally distract me that much.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to start doing it in small stuff, because by the time it's big stuff, man, the more we tug, the bigger it is, the heavier it is.
Our context as pastors is Sundays.
Right.
And so I think we've got a bunch of examples
Oh, a bunch.
of times that people haven't
Yeah.
led and bled well.
Oh, right. I think it's really important because, wherever you are, whatever you're leading, whatever organization it is, you have a go time, game time moment and spot, and you got to learn how to really, you said it great, take your thoughts captive and determine, I'm going to keep going even in the midst of it. I remember one season with an employee that had been going through a hard time, and we'd been having conversations over and over and over again, trying to determine, honestly, I now look back as a leader and know that I dragged it along too long. I should have said, this is okay. Let's cut bait. You go ahead and do what you need to do.
Let's make a transition.
Yeah.
Which we need to do a conversation on staffing transitions at some point.
We should definitely do that.
But we waited too long.
We both, I think, felt like, one, we had grace and love because that's who we are as pastors.
Yeah.
But then also, we thought kind of in that season that we needed them more than we did. We were maybe fearful that if they were gone, how could we replace them? Yeah.
For sure.
And so it all kind of came to like a precipice, like a head during the holiday season, where they're literally in a classroom having a meltdown during service when they're needed to be working on the
left their post.
Yeah.
Went to a classroom, turned the lights off,
and
locked the door, and cried.
Yeah.
And things are exploding because they're not there.
Present. They're not there. And I hate it. But I hate it for them that they felt that way. But the truth is, we have to determine to deal with things in real time so that it doesn't come to that. And then we have to understand that it can't. It can't come to that. Like that if we're in that place, then we're no longer leading. We're no longer doing what God's called us to do. And I think you and I are cut from the same cloth, both like personality, but also in the way we were raised of like,
do the job,
get it done. And sometimes to our own detriment, sometimes to a fault.
But that's why we've talked so much about rest and how we still are learning it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you said like that season of us, when we were in that tragic weekend, you and I both had you pulled me in and were like lots of intentional conversations to make sure I wasn't doing the wrong thing. But I see it so often the other direction, that the enemy will come in and plant a seed of something, and then instead of plucking it out, it grows.
Yeah.
And man, I there's so many moments where, just not even showing up on time because people have been having fights at home or been having issues with their spouse that they're like, I can't leave them because we're fighting. I'm like, well, you can say this conversation ends and you got to get to where you got to go.
Right.
It's such a huge thing I see as an issue of if we don't learn as leaders to start doing that, to lead and bleed at the same moment and handle our junk in the right moment, we're never going to get all into God has for us.
Because, okay, that staff member that you talked about isn't the only time something like that's happened.
No, not
We've had
at all.
a bunch.
A ton.
We've had staff have fights in the lobby.
Oh, absolutely.
Pulling stuff, literally, not like physical punching each other.
No. Pulling punches with their words and with their emotions.
Pulling stuff out of bags, and literally a lady dumped a trash can over it. Like,
what's happening?
What is so? There's a couple things that happen when you don't lead and bleed well.
Right. Because it always erupts somewhere.
It always erupts. Your influence is now affected.
Yeah. No.
Because if I would have just walked off the stage and said I can't do it, my leadership influence would have been greatly affected.
Correct.
The whole church is going, what is going on with
Right.
Pastor Trustin?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Right.
Oh, maybe this isn't the right direction. We're getting ready to we're launching a building campaign.
Right.
Maybe we shouldn't even build this building.
Right.
Maybe he's not emotionally stable.
Right.
If you're having freakouts and huddled up in corners and crying and not doing your job, what happens is those that are leading you and those that you're leading start to wonder if you're going to be able to do it.
Well, and what we allow becomes allowable. And so if we as leaders are becoming those people, we're going to reproduce people just like that. And
Good God.
It's true. We're leading and influencing everyone around us, whether
If you're the primary leader,
or even a secondary leader. If you're leading people, the people you're leading are going to become like you.
what walks in us runs in them.
Yeah, we say that all the
What
time.
I allow, if I come into the office
Right.
and I keep taking a bunch of days not coming to work, or I keep yelling at Rachel, or
Right.
whatever the
Right.
story is, then everybody else is allowed
Yeah.
is allowed to do that.
Right. And
Now listen, if you're only listening to this podcast, you're going to think that we're just hard butts who don't want you to talk about feelings.
No.
Every other podcast we're talking
we
about,
talk about it all the time.
Deal with it. Go to counseling. Have the conversations. But there's moments where you've got to lead while you're dripping blood.
Well, because if we are wanting to step into all the more God has for us, it takes emotional health. It takes understanding what we feel and what we're walking through, and actually being a healthy person. But it takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And we can't just give up the hard work when it gets hard.
Yeah.
But so often we want to, whether it's because we're not healthy, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I see is what I see in those moments with people who aren't leading and bleeding well is that they don't realize the influence that they have. They don't realize and recognize, hey, your job is to lead and smile and charge the hill. What you're showing instead is that you can't do that. Like, you can't handle it. And so sadly what happens is you can't. You have to stop doing the job.
Wow.
No, it's true.
Let me give the biblical
Do it.
example.
It's always good.
So, Jesus, he died to be our savior,
Yep.
but he lived to be our example.
Right.
And so in Jesus' life, he's actually bleeding and still
Actually.
leading.
He's
Jesus
sweating blood.
is in the Garden of Gethsemane,
Right.
sweating blood,
Right.
bleeding. And then Peter gets in a fight, chops a guy's ear off.
Right.
And instead of Jesus being led by his feelings, he leads by his decision.
Right.
He heals the guy. He tells his disciples to put the swords away. Jesus has been beat up, punched to a pulp, but he's standing before Pilate and he's in his right mind. Jesus is literally nailed to a cross,
Right.
being crucified, but he looks at John, his disciple, and he says, hey, take care of my mother.
Yeah.
He looks at the guys that are gambling for his robe,
Right.
and he forgives them. He looks at the thief on the cross and says, today you'll be with me in paradise.
Right.
Jesus was bleeding in the most excruciating, that's why we call it the cross.
Yep.
It's excruciating way, but yet he was leading.
Right.
So our example as Christians, if you're a Christian watching this, is that we need to be able to bleed and lead at the same time.
Yeah. Because when he's walking through the hard thing, he showed who he really was.
Yep.
When you're walking through a hard thing, you can't help but show who you really
Yeah.
are. And like you said, if you can't get your composure, you're showing that you're a person who's living a life without self-control.
And if Jesus is too big of a stretch for you to relate to,
Right.
Paul
Yeah.
says that he was beaten
Right.
and shipwrecked
Yep.
and snake bitten and locked in prison
Right.
and without food and even naked for a season. But yet he still led.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Paul wrote some of the most encouraging content in the Bible from a prison cell.
Absolutely.
Now, wait a minute.
No, right.
You put me in prison?
Right.
I'm not sure I'm encouraging anybody.
No.
But what he was doing is he was leading and bleeding. And the example that we have from men and women in the Bible, Moses was being berated by
Right.
the Israelites. Moses prayed, God, kill me,
Right.
take me. I don't want to lead these rough-necked people,
Right.
stiff-necked people. But he did it anyways.
Yeah.
He cried and then he led.
Yeah. No, I mean, Paul says that he's learned to be content whatever the circumstances.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is like, I've learned that I've got to keep moving forward no matter what's going on around me. And so it's not that you have the right spaces, the right places, the right time to deal with the things, but you have to keep going, putting one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other.
So if you're a single parent and you're brokenhearted and sad, you still have to go to work.
Yeah.
You still
have to make
dinner.
You
still got to make dinner.
Take them, get their back to school clothes and shopping and all the pieces.
If you're a pastor and your budget is down through this COVID season, you still have to preach.
Right.
You still have to
keep showing up.
If you're an associate pastor or a kids pastor or a lead pastor and your volunteers are down, or your dog got hit by a car, or your mom is sick or something.
Yeah.
You have to be able to lead and bleed at the same time.
Well, because with our mouth, we're telling people, as pastors anyway, we're telling people that like God, we trust God and God's in charge and he's going to take care of our life. And if we aren't living that example of saying, I do trust God to keep handling junk even while I'm doing what I'm called to do, then we're really giving a bad example.
So let's talk about the moments and what people do in the moment.
Okay.
So okay, you're an employee somewhere, whether you work in a Burger King or you're working at a mega church.
Yeah.
You're an employee somewhere, and that feeling, that trigger, that situation of life starts to feel really big.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, great question. For us, in our context, what we've done is we've created a safe space as well, which means we've created relationship with each other, friendship that is real and trusted and true, and people that we can say, hey. And so that day that you had a hard day, we prayed over you after that. Like we knew what was happening. We all are friends. So the four of us, your wife, my husband, and I and you, prayed together and said, hey, God, be with us today, be with him in this moment, give him all the afterward, because we knew what was happening.
Well, it happens a lot. Aaron, Whitney's husband, he's my best friend.
It's okay. See, we're people.
Yeah.
We're humans.
Aaron does, he does usually one of two things for me when I'm discouraged. He either just comes in and hugs me and prays over me, or he smacks me around a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've got to have people that are allowed to do both.
Right.
One of my favorite movies is Over the Top. It's a arm wrestling movie from the 80s.
Probably do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah. I literally have a photo of it in my office with Sylvester Stallone. And like while these guys are getting ready to go in an arm wrestle, they have a guy that just starts smacking the junk out of them. And you see it like in wrestling or even in powerlifting.
No, they even have like YouTube,
this guy named Eddie Hall. He just recently deadlifted 1,000 pounds. And before he goes out, these dudes are beating the junk out of him.
Yeah.
There's a guy literally pulling on his ears and a guy slapping him in the head. Why? Because sometimes you need somebody to help you pull it together.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll be backstage getting ready to go out and preach, and Aaron knows I've been traveling or I've been busy or I'm tired, and he doesn't do that.
No.
But he'll smack me in the shoulder. You got this.
Yeah.
And he'll speak life and he'll speak encouragement to me. Or he'll just grab me and he'll come in and hug me and he'll just pray over me.
Yeah.
And so we've got to have people that will not just will not just pacify us.
Correct.
We've got to have people that won't just stroke our back and it's okay. So you sit here as long as you need. No, don't sit there as long as you need.
No.
Get your tail up and get to work.
Right.
Now you better go deal with it on Monday or you better deal with it on Thursday.
Right.
You better go and deal with what's happening in you. But as for right now, get your tail off the ground and get back in the game.
No, it's true, because if we don't, the job we do is literally a struggle, a fight against flesh and it's not against flesh and blood. It's a spiritual
battle.
fight. It's a spiritual battle. And
what are we trying?
Basis. Are we trying to let the devil win, or are we going to get our fists up and fight? And so for me, I think I see that in this world of church world, I get more passionate about it, because I'm like, hey, we know who's on our side. Let's go. Like if we really are who we say we are and we believe what we believe, he who the Son sets free is free indeed.
Yeah.
And so let's walk in that.
Speak to it.
And then if we're just, even in our secular world though, like if we want to achieve what God has called us to be, the only way to do that is to be the person that shows up, to be the person that fights hardest, works hardest. It's just what it is. And so I've worked in cosmetics world before this, and man, that's a world full of drama. Just to be honest, like
I can imagine.
In that world, fashion design industry, that whole industry is it's highly competitive, and it is full of all kind of drama and gossip and all the things. And you have a choice. I had a choice every day to walk in and to just hold my head high and to do what I was called to do, or to get caught up in the emotions and the chaos and the circumstance. And what always served me well was to just keep doing and keep doing what I'm supposed to do. And so I imagine in any industry, there is places where you can get drawn into the emotion, and while you're bleeding you just want to stay there and sit and sulk in it. But let's determine to be people who are going to lead even while we bleed, so we can step into more.
So I feel like there's going to be some people that are listening to this that right now in their life they're doing okay. They don't have a whole lot of areas that they are bleeding, but maybe you have someone that you love and you care about, and it feels like they're bleeding a lot and they're having a hard time leading. Can I just encourage you?
No, yes.
Don't only be a pacifier.
No.
Do you know babies? A baby starts crying and they have this little plastic thing you shove in the baby's mouth, and it tricks the baby to think it's something that it isn't.
Right. That's what it literally is.
And the baby just starts being soothed by this false thing. And what we do when we have someone that we love who's emotionally unstable, and all we keep doing is telling them it's okay, stay here, it's okay, feel the feelings. No, man. No. They need to get to work. They need to do their job when they're doing their job, and they need to get healthy when they're getting healthy.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the other part of it is
I get nervous because we're talking so hard, but it's out of a place of love, because we want you emotionally well.
No.
It's just that you've got to get emotionally well in the right moments, in the right time, or you need to take a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to say, I can't do this job.
I got to take a time off.
I can't be a leader right now. I need to go and stack lumber.
Right.
I need to go and do a physical job because my body can do it, but my brain can't do it.
Well, and that's what we have to understand, that, and what I wish that people did understand, because we are going to talk about transition at some point. It's hard, but we've had to have some transitions because of those exact reasons. And we have had a few, but very few employees who've said that, hey, I need a season out of this because I need it. But most of them sadly have not been able to gain composure, and then we've had to be the ones to release. And I hate that.
Yeah.
And it can make us feel like we're punks, but
it causes us to bleed.
Yeah. Oh, it's super painful. Super painful. But the fact is, if we want to step into more, we have to determine, hey, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to really handle it. But today I'm going to show up and I'm going to give my all to it.
If you're bleeding, hurting, struggling, you've got to have somewhere to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But you've got to make sure you're talking in the right place.
Right. No. Yeah.
So if you have someone in your life that only pacifies you, maybe they're not the ones that you only need to talk to about it.
No, right.
So like if your mom or dad or brother or sister or husband or wife or certain coworker friend, all they do is say, it's okay, you're right. Life is hard. Maybe you need to find somebody who will encourage you to keep going or kick your butt to keep pushing.
No, I had someone recently that I talked to that said, the reason I wanted to call you and talk to you is because I knew you would tell me the truth and kick my butt.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, good, because you're right. Sometimes we feel like, oh man, we're too harsh or too straightforward or too whatever. But the truth is, the Bible tells us wounds from a friend, they can be trusted.
Yeah.
And so if we're
whereas kisses from an enemy, they shouldn't be trusted.
No, right. They shouldn't. And they deliver folly or something. I don't know. But it's true that if we're just people who just tell people what they want to hear, we're not really leaders either ourselves. And if we will speak truth in love, man, we can be helpful to people. And so, don't be pacifiers. Don't do it. It's not getting you anywhere, and it's not getting them anywhere. And it's really wearing us out.
Another name for pacifier would be an enabler.
100%.
You ever see that 100%. TV show?
Which one?
Intervention.
Oh, yes.
It's kind of an older show. I think it's still on. Intervention is basically they have someone who's like on drugs, and then they get all the people's family together, right. And the family tells them they have an intervention.
Right.
Every time.
Yeah, inevitably.
The addicted has an enabler.
Yeah.
It has someone who keeps giving them money to go and buy drugs. It has someone who keeps on letting them stay in their house, keep on letting them borrow their car, whatever it is. There's an enabler, and I think that sometimes that people who refuse to deal with their emotional hurt and they just keep on limping through life, it's because they have an enabler that's letting them live out that mess.
No, right.
That fantasy of it's okay to keep being this way.
Right.
No, man. Let's not be enablers. Well, let's not be giving crackheads $100 bills.
Yeah.
In the form of, it's okay, go to the classroom and cry.
Right.
It's okay, don't get a job.
Right.
It's okay, don't go talk to the doctor about this. Mm-hmm. It's okay, don't go to marriage counseling. No, that's horrible advice.
Yeah.
Deal with it in the right times, not in the wrong times.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going on a road trip.
Yes.
If you're going on a road trip, the time to get an oil change is before you leave.
Correct.
And so if you're called to more, if you feel like God has a big journey for your life to accomplish something, you've got to put the vehicle in maintenance before the long trip.
Right.
But the reason we have breakdowns and we find ourselves crying in lobbies and classrooms and having to go into the parking lot and smoke a cigarette because we can't deal with the stress of the day, the reason we find ourselves doing those things is because we're not dealing with the problem beforehand.
Right. There will be moments that are heavy and hard.
Yep.
I mean, tragic moments, heavy moments. We've faced them over the last 10 years many times. And that's allowed and okay. But the regular stresses of life, they're going to come in like a tidal wave if we haven't dealt with it.
Yeah.
And if we want to call ourselves leaders and we want to step into more, then it's a constant tug, a constant fight to hold onto the rope and to keep tugging rather than to give up when we get a little. I mean, I've told you before, it's why I hated the game, because I was little and scrawny, but I didn't keep working at becoming an athlete. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I can't call myself an athlete today.
Right.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so, but I want to call myself a leader and I want to be a woman of more. And so in order to do that, I got to be willing to what?
No, I'm just thinking so many things that you're saying is so good.
No, yes. But it's because it's what we've determined.
To win in the tug of more, we have to obtain calloused hands and tender hearts.
No, it's true.
But we get it backwards. We want tender hands. We want tender feelings, but we get a calloused heart.
That's true.
This is the opposite, guys.
That's really true.
If you're trying to get to more, you have to get tough on the outside, but stay extremely tender on the inside.
Yeah.
Tender towards God, tender towards trusted voices, tender towards the Holy Spirit, but we have to be able to pull anyways.
No, yesterday.
God, that's so good.
No, it is, because yesterday you shared a Devo with our team. And normally I know what you're going to talk about before, and I didn't. But I mean, whatever. Once you started talking, I was like, yes, of course. But it was so good that I didn't, because I needed it too. And I knew you knew. I was like, yeah, I needed it. And there was one thing you said, and now I can't even fully remember. And I literally was like, I'm about to burst into tears in front of everyone. But it was because, I've been in this fight of like staying tender on the inside, even while leading on the outside. That's not easy. And it's fun. It's good in those moments where you're like, I'm doing it. I did it. But yes, we have to stay. I think that, golly, it's such a good concept. I'm like, I wish we could unpack it more, of just the idea that we want to not have to get our hands very dirty anymore. We want to be leaders who are leading from this high moment and place where we're not having to be down in the grit of it, but then we get calloused here. And oh man,
I would much rather have calloused hands than a calloused heart.
No, me too.
Why did God choose David?
No, right.
Because of his heart, man. His heart. But David had been killing lions and bears. His hands were calloused. He's out working the sheep. He was tough.
Right.
He was tough. But he was still able to play the harp. And so there's this balance of like mighty and gentle.
Right.
But we get them crossed.
Yeah.
we want to be gentle and soft. Yeah.
No, it's so good. We'll have to talk more about it, but the idea of like, I'm like, yes, that's what happens is that people they get so calloused that then when the hard thing that they have to deal with in the moment comes, they just fall apart. And I'm like, oh no, let us stay tender. It's really good.
God's called you to more.
Absolutely.
He wants to do great things in your life. We have to deal with the hurt that we've experienced. We have to deal with the areas. We just have to do them in the right moments.
Absolutely.
Be willing to bleed and lead at the same time.
Yeah.
We've got to be able to have some good bleedership.
Leadership.
How about that?
Leadership. I love it.
Love you guys.
Yes.
See ya.